The following video was sponsored by the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia, preserving and promoting our community's history.
The road to becoming an American citizen has been paved by our grandparents, parents, and quite possibly some of us may have actually traveled that same path. Our guest today is Harry Papadakes, a founding member of the St. Sophia Greek Orthodox community here in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Harry, welcome to Cosmos Philly.
Thank you. I welcome you and Vasily to my house. I'm honored to be interviewed by you people. I also like to thank the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia.
Wonderful, thank you. Harry, tell us a little bit about your life starting out in Greece and how you got to America.
I was born in a village, Elika, Laconia. My father was born in another village, Lyra. His father came from Mani, and he settled in that village. And then, when my father was 20 years of age, he came to the United States. And he started working. And then the Balkan War started. Right. So he left the United States as a volunteer, and he went back to Greece to fight the Turks, because Greece was then up to Thessaly. And after the war was over there, he came back to Wilmington, Delaware, and there he started working. And in the First World War, in 1918, he volunteered and went to the American Army. He stayed there for a year, and then the war was over, so he didn't have to go overseas. After that, he got his discharge. He worked hard, and in 1928, he left for Greece. He never came back. He went to Lyra, and from Lyra he settled in Elika, where I was born, because he opened a store over there, and he married my mother. He liked it, even though it was 15 years older, my father. He got married, and that's where I was born, and along with my other two brothers. I was the youngest one.
You came to America, I think you said, when you were 20 years old. What was the inspiration for you to come to America? What was the reason?
I don't want to go to the early years of my age. We'll go from the time that I graduate school in Athens, in Piraeus, high school and textile school. And that was 53 and 54. My two brothers, one of them was in an office in the Greek army, and the other one was just drafted. So as soon as I finished the two schools, I went to the village to help my father, because we had a store, and he was ill, and he couldn't take care of the store himself. So while I was there, the idea came to me to come to the States, maybe for a better studies on a textile school. So, and I found that I was privileged to leave Greece as an American citizen, because my father, he was an American citizen, right, and he never lost it till that time. So before I went to the Greek army, I had the opportunity to leave Greece. So I left Greece with that thought, two passports, one Greek and one American. With the Greek was to leave the country, and the American to get in the United States.
What did you have, was there an idea in your head about what you thought America was?
No, because I wrote a letter to my uncle that's supposed to give me an idea. Then he never answered me. So anyway, I got my ticket, and I left Greece in 1955.
You came alone?
alone with Queen Frederica. It was the first voyage for that ship.
Have you ever been out of Greece before then?
No, the only thing from the village, you know, I left when I was 12 years old. I went to high school in another town by the name Molaos, because there was not a high school in Lika, and that's all. And I lived in Piraeus for 4 years.
So how long did it take you to get to the States with Queen Federica?
We left January 29 in 1955, and we arrived February 10, 1955. So it took us almost 12 days.
Where did you arrive and settle into?
Well, I was expecting someone to pick me up at New York City, but my uncle didn't show up. And as I was going out, I didn't know what to do. I saw a lady that she was calling my name. And I said, yes, I am Papadakes and Harry. And she says to me, your mother's name is Sophia and your father's is... I said, yes. So she told me that she was my aunt, my mother's brother's wife. So she says to me, let's go to the other side of the boat because your uncle is doing the same thing that I was doing. So we didn't want to lose you. So that's the first steps in New York City that I had.
So, and you were only in the States for a really short time, I think, right? You were 20 years old, something took place, you were living with family.
Let's put it this way, it wasn't so easy in the beginning because my other uncle came to pick me up and I stayed in Wildwood Crest for a couple months. But I didn't like it over there. There was winter time, no people, no jobs, nothing. So what happens, he took me back to Jersey City. But before we went to Jersey City, he took me for a tour. That I like to say it. He took me to Wilmington, and I saw a lot of relatives over there because, like I said, my father was born in Illyria, and lots of people that were there.
You're also related to another well-known Greek-American family here in the States. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yes, we mentioned the Sigounis family, but the three brothers that they were in Campton, they had a sister by the name Matula. And Matula happens to be Senator Sarbanes' mother. So that makes me a cousin of Senator Sarbanes. From there, we went back to Jersey City, and I started working in my uncle's place. They had a restaurant by the name Alps. The two brothers, they own it, brothers of my mother's side. So I started working over there as a busboy. I learned the business on a bar as a bartender, and then the waiter. So I was doing all three jobs every day.
How was your English? Did you learn English?
I had taken some English in Greece before I came to the States. I could understand, but I needed practice to talk. So anyway, everything was going okay, working hard. You don't count the hours, especially when you work for relatives. So, but they were good to me. I stayed there for a year and a half. I was just started going to high school to get a little bit more experience in English and history and a little bit typing.
So at night you were taking the night courses.
And then I received a letter from Dwight Eisenhower, drafted me in the army.
Okay.
Eisenhower was the president of the United States and chief of staff, right? So I had to stop everything, and the day that I was supposed to show up, it was in Newark, New Jersey. I went over there. I went through examinations, and then they took us to Fort Dix, where I had my basic training. From there, I was sent to San Antonio, Texas. It was a Fort Sam Houston over there to become a medic. So I took the courses over there, and then I was shipped back in Brooklyn, back on a boat, this time on a Navy boat, and I went back to Europe.
Well, before you go to Europe, let's backtrack. It must have been quite a shock for you to go from the New Jersey area to San Antonio.
My God, yes. I remember it was wintertime, and we left with overcoats and heavy clothing, and we got over there. It was so hot. Oh, very different. And
the people?
And the people, different accent over there. But in the camp, you had the unique thing about the army then. It was because you had all kinds of bodies, from all over the United States, and you had the opportunity to learn more things, and you learn to work together, to talk, to get training. They helped me a lot. They didn't care if I was a Greek or not. and to tell the truth, I had a good time in San Antonio.
Did you meet any Greeks down there?
Yes. By the way, it happens to have our Easter. And me and another fellow, we went, a Greek descent, we went to the Anastasis service. And as soon as they saw us, a couple came along, and he invited us to come next day to their house. And we got the address, and next day we got there. And by the way, the church that we went to, would you believe the name was Saint Sophia?
Right.
And and we did have a good time. He had 3 kids, and we played with the kids. And when the time came to leave, those kids, they were crying like they love us. We had a good time.
So now take us forward. San Antonio, you went back to New York. You were getting ready to ship to...
Yeah. In Brooklyn, we got to the military, the naval boat, and we crossed over again the Atlantic. We stopped in Casablanca, Morocco, a couple of days. From there, we went to Bremerhaven, Germany, and from there, by train, we went to Metz, and then the buses came and picked us up and took us to an old camp. I wouldn't recommend that camp for nobody. It was the First World War camp, no heat, nothing. It was the name was hospital, but it was not a hospital. They had the cots for beds and things like that.
How long were you there?
We stayed there for 6 months, but they were building a new hospital. And our job was going to a place by the name Verdun, about 50, 60 miles away. And we load up, every day we did that for almost 6 months, all the equipment and everything for the new hospital. And that was our job, for the time being. The new hospital was a unique, brand new one. The name was Jean d'Arc U.S. Army Hospital. And everything was up to date.
Did you spend any time seeing France while you were there? Did you travel around France?
France, yes. I had the opportunity because I was working on the motor pool, and I was driving ambulance, and I had the opportunity to go to different camps around France, and even in Germany, take patients or go and pick up patients, things like that. Yes, I did.
So you mentioned your first vacation from the military base. You also said there was a second break that you had, a leave, that really affected you, an incident that took place. Could you briefly speak about this?
Me and another 3 guys, one of them was black, we went to San Antonio by bus. As soon as we got there, we had to take another bus in the city to go to our destination. And the funny thing that, so not funny, it shook me up. It was the black guy. As soon as we got into the bus, he took his hat off and he ran to sit down on the last seat of the bus. I didn't like that. So when we come out, we went to see the Alamo and we walked around. Then we decided to go and have something to bite. To my surprise, we couldn't find a place to sit down and eat.
Why is that?
Because most of the places, they had signs, no Negroes allowed. That, me coming from Greece, that we didn't have this kind of ratio, it hit me because I thought, here we are, taking the same basic, the same lessons, we live in the same barracks, we eat together. In case of a war, we might have to help each other and fight together. And here we are in the United States of America, and we cannot eat together. It was very hard for me.
Is it something that you continue to remember this day that affects you?
No, because later on, things reversed all over the States, even though sometimes some of the southern states, they still have a little bit racial issues. But I think right now things are in a better...
So now take us forward to Brooklyn, New York, and going abroad.
Brooklyn, New York, like I said before, we traveled to Morocco. We stayed there for a couple of days, then in Germany, and down to our destination. And it was an old camp, like I said. And then, but they were building a new hospital. And our job was to go and get all this equipment and everything for the new hospital. The name of the hospital was Jean d'Arc U.S. Army Hospital. Our job was there after we moved over there. The name of my company was 57 Field Hospital. In other words, we had 4 units, and we were able, any time of the day, year, anytime, night or day, to go quite a few distance and build a hospital with tents, field hospital. And the exercise was how long it would take us to go up there, put up the tents, build the hospital, to be ready to receive patients, x-rays and everything else, operating rooms and everything else. That was during the Cold War, and we need that. One time, I remember that my unit, we were 4 units in the hospital. My unit was ready to fly over to Lebanon. We had some kind of a trouble over there, uprising, but thank God the Marines went first over there, and everything quieted down, and we didn't have to go there.
All right, well, take us forward then. You spent 6 months in France, and then what happened?
In France, I spent 19 months.
19 months. That's a lot long.
Yeah.
So what happened 19 months later?
No, during the time, I can tell you this, because I knew my wife. She was young at the time, but we had a correspondence, and when I went to Greece a couple of times on leave, I saw my family too.
So from France you went to Greece on leave?
On leave, yes, okay. Yeah, twice. But what I did, my company commander, he told me that they were looking at the officers' club. They were looking for some who knew the bartending. Uh-huh. So, and I told him I was interested. So he gave me the opportunity. And he talked to the club officer, And I started working after my off-duty hours at nights. I was getting paid extra. I needed the money because I knew I wanted to get discharged in Europe and go back and maybe get married and or stay for a while and then come back to the States. And this is what happened.
So what was that like for you, bartending for the officers?
But attending, I had fun. Officers, they drink a lot, but not when they're on duty.
Right.
I had the opportunity to meet a lot of officers. They did some favors for me, and I made money. So when I got discharged, I had enough money to go to Greece on my own, stay there for 2-3 months. I got married with my wife, and they pay my ticket for both of us coming back with the same boat, Queen Frederica.
And the bartending money helped pay for the wedding and everything?
Yes. I saved my money.
Right. Well, so tell us now, what year was it that you returned to the States with your new wife?
I got discharged in 1958, December, 7th of December. And December 28, we got married. And then, right away, I started doing all the papers that needed for my wife. And March 25th, in 1959, we came back to the States. We left Greece.
And you arrived where?
We arrived in New York again, and we settled in Jersey City, back to the old job. Okay? And of course, a couple of years later, my daughter Sophia came along, and of course by then we had rented an apartment, lived separate from the rest of the family, and I was working there. But during that time, my wife's uncle, great uncle, in other words, my wife's grandmother's brother, he had a place. He visited us in Jersey City, and he told me he had a place in Norristown, Pennsylvania.
That's how you got here?
That's what I got here. He told me, he promised me, when he decided to sell, he will ask me if I wanted to. And this is what happened. One day, when he told me that, we put everything on, we load everything on a truck, and we moved to Norristown. Of course, I had come earlier to find a house and everything else, and we came over, and that's why it's...
So what happened? You bought the store?
I bought the store.
Tell us about the store.
The store was a fast food store with a famous, very famous for the hot dogs.
What was it called?
Montgomery Lunch.
Montgomery Lunch in Norristown, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and the hot dogs, they had a special name, Texas Hot Wieners. We had a special sauce. Of course, I got the recipe to do it, and the hot dogs with everything was mustard sauce and onions. That was the specialty of the. Of course, we had hamburgers, we had egg sandwiches and steaks and cheesesteaks and things like that.
Now, this store was in downtown Norristown. You had just bought it. You'd only been here how long when you bought it and moved down here? And were you here for a couple of years?
In Norristown?
Yes.
No. I bought it as soon as I arrived to Norristown.
But I mean, when you arrived in the United States and came to Norristown, how much time had transpired?
I got discharged I came back to Jersey City in '59, so in 1965 I moved over here. So about 6 years later.
And you saw that there was a Greek community here?
Yes, the Uncle Nick, his name was, he told us there was a few Greeks around, but Spiro Tsipras, who was the leader, I would say, of this group, he had a store nearby, and he visited me, and he told me that there is a Greek community by the name Hellenic Civic Association.
So it was already formed.
Yes.
Okay, before we talk about the Hellenic Association, let's go back and talk a little bit about your store. You were well known for these hot dogs. How long did you have the store? Tell us about what life was like in Norristown with this business.
Well, the store was open at the time from 8 o'clock till 1 o'clock in the morning. In Norristown was alive during the night. It was a night business. In fact, when I bought the store, the night business was much, much better from the day. Even though I tried to put breakfast there. But eventually, when they start building these shopping malls, all the stores from Norristown, they start moving out. The theater that was there and used to bring people. I remember some Saturdays afternoons, the line of the people that were going to see the movie was all the way down to my place. And after the movie, you know, it was crazy house in there. But eventually they moved out and things changed.
Did you work the store with your family or alone?
Yes, I had a family, I had waitresses, and I had a night manager because, like I said, was open from in the morning till 1 in the and I couldn't be there all these hours.
How many hours did you put into the store?
At least from 8 to 10 hours.
8 to 10 hours a day?
Yeah. It was an easy store, but you had to be there. And when you have a small store and you can't afford it to have a lot of people because it was small business, family oriented. So I did have help from my wife and my daughter when she grew up. But like I said, things change. So a time came that the day business, they were better than the night business. So we start closing a little bit earlier. First we start closing 12 o'clock, and then 11 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock. Good thing that the store had lots of business takeout orders. And that helped. And it stayed, the business was good till the time I sold it.
How long did you have the store?
I had for 25 years.
20. Do you miss it?
Not exactly. I put a lot of hours, and in the end, I was getting tired because I was putting too many hours. Sometimes people didn't show up, and then you had to put a double shift. And when you get a little older, you know, you get tired of it. So I decided before I get sick to get rid of it.
Well, let's talk about that community. You were a business owner. You were now meeting people that were Greek. There was a community here around the Hellenic Association. Let's talk about that. Tell me about that.
Well, the Hellenic Civic Association, as soon as I found out, they told me the days that they used to meet, and I did join them. I went and joined them and meet the people. It was about 20, 25 families. I have some of their names, if you want me to mention. Maybe the old-timers, they might like to hear those names.
Well, tell us a few names then.
It was the Tsipras family, it was the Bell family, it was the Gadonas, Gazonas, Kachas, Notaras.
The Greek families that we're talking about, were they, you know, Greeks tend to congregate from the same place. Where were all these Greek families or people from? Were they from the same, Greece. From all over?
From all over Greece, and they used to meet at the Holy Savior Hall.
Holy Savior Hall.
Yeah.
Is that in Norristown?
That's further down in the Italian section in Norristown. And we used to meet over there. We had some celebrations like the 25th of March, things like that, and other things. And we used to collect money, do some fundraisings. But on the late 60s, we had a lot of kids because all of us, most of us, we were young and we had kids. We had about more than 30 kids. So the we decided, and Spiro Tsipras was the liaison between the Hellenic Civic Association and St. George the Cathedral, and he was make the arrangements, and we the Eisenhower High School, they gave us a classroom twice a week, and we start having Greek school for our kids, and it was sponsored by St. George the Cathedral. He had a teacher, they had a teacher, they used to come over here. That, we continued that for a long time till we decided to have our own church.
So let me get this straight. There was the Hellenic Civic Association, and there was a Greek school twice a week for your community that was forming. You didn't mention church yet. What about liturgy services for the community?
Liturgy services, well, most of us, we belong to St. George. The rest of them, they were belonging to the rest of the communities around here. The idea of having our own church, it was too early yet. But we arranged that we had start having liturgies on a monthly basis.
What year was that?
That was on the late 60s. And that was the time we formed the AHEPA too. So we started having liturgies at the Commonwealth Bank basement. And the people, we had, a lot of response from the people. And we continued that on a monthly basis. And then the idea came to buy a building of our own, which we did.
All right, so let me understand. It's 1970, and you were holding your liturgy services once a month in the Commonwealth Bank basement. The Hellenic Civic Association had formed. You had rooted yourselves in the community. And how did you come to actually start your own first church?
Well, we found a place that was for sale with 5 apartments and 2 stores.
In Norristown?
In Norristown. So we bought it. We had a little bit incident in the beginning that the people voted down, but Spiro and I, we said we're going to buy it for ourselves. And then they decided right away and they voted for it. So we bought it and we fixed it up, and from there then, we start having our liturgies in our own place. And we got together there on Saturday nights, we played cards there, all kinds of celebrations. We had our own
Culture Center Cafaneo all together.
Yeah, all together. And
that's where you spent your weekends.
And on Sundays, we used to have it as we had an altar with a curtain, close up.
No kidding.
Yeah, and open.
How many people would show up for this?
Quite a few.
More than 50, 100?
Yeah, 50 or 75. And
who was conducting the services for you?
there were coming different priests from St. George, the cathedral.
Like?
We had the Father Caterlis in the beginning. We had the Father Daios. We had Father Mamalis.
Okay.
We had some other priests from different places. An old man, he was coming from Allentown, anytime we need him. So anyway, this way, we kept the building for 7 years.
The community was growing now.
It was growing, and we kept it for 7 years. Then we found a buyer, and we sold it for $45,000.
Okay.
And that money, we bought the small church in Center Avenue. And we paid $62,000 for that. But at the same time,
but what kind of church was that? You didn't.
that was a Pentecostal.
So you converted.
We converted. St. George gave us the altar, and we put it there. We still have it, I think, someplace. It was a nice little church.
How many families approximately?
It was 420 seating capacity. Families. We grew up because a lot of Greeks came in that early 70s, late 60s and early 70s came from Greece, and a lot of them, they moved over here. There was a lot of factories around. So they came up here, and of course they joined, yeah.
Now you had a church, you said. What was the name of the church? Did you name it?
There was no name on the church. It was just the church, and we start having liturgies over there. That was the time when we tried to see Metropolitan Silas, and then somehow he didn't want to see us at the beginning. But finally we convinced him, and he told us what we had to do, and that's what we did. He gave us Father Andrews in late 80s. Father Andrews came in, and we start having, instead of monthly, we do twice a month liturgy. Okay. And people respond. Then we decided, before we go any farther, because Father Andrews was a very experienced priest, very good man. We try every week, and people respond. So that was the time when we had new elections in 1981, and we were about 80 families. 80 people, they signed the rules and regulations, and all those people, they are the founders of the new church.
So that's basically
but no name. That's the study.
No name. 81, 80 families or so.
Yeah.
A charter was created?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But we had the permission of Silas to do the elections, which I was privileged to be the first president of as a Greek community, a Greek Orthodox community. And then Father Andrews, he had a lot of experience, and he helped us a lot. He put the foundations, and we decided, of course, with the permission of Metropolitan Silas, to have an affair and give the name to our community. And at the same time, the Hellenic Civic Association was dissolved and turned everything to the Greek Orthodox community.
So the history of the Greek community here in Norristown started with the Hellenic Civic Association, which then folded or closed, gave all its stuff to the new church, to the church with no name. All right, take us forward.
At that time, Father Andrews, we got in touch with Metropolitan Silas, and he decided to come and visit us for the first time the 16th of May of 1981. So Father Andrews and I, we went to New York to bring him over. We came to the little church. I don't know if he was disappointed or not, but we had a Vesper service, and the next day we had the hierarchical service, and also I was in charge of this affair, and we had a gathering in King of Prussia in Stoffer's Hotel. We had more than 200 people there, and that was the time we gave the name to Saint Sophia. How did that? We had a lot of saints. That was Father Andrews. That was Father Andrews' work. Some of the people, they wanted to choose their own saint. So every name, it was $10 a vote. So we had quite a few saints that to ask for their name. So when Metropolitan Silas came, and after dinner, he got the microphone, and he said he put the name on auction. So the first guy who got up, he says, I give $10,000 for St. John the Prodromos. Another guy got up and he said, I'm going to give $15,000 to Sotiros. Another guy comes in, he says, well, for St. Nicholas. And they start going up. Meanwhile, before we arrived to that, Mrs. Kelly's, who was a parishioner, and she had a lot of money. In fact, Father Andrews and I, we tried to convince her to help us to build the church, but she didn't want it. she built a mausoleum instead. But we convinced her to buy the name. And she gave me a written permission to bid up to $28,000 for the name. So I had the paper on my hands to bid for the name of Saint Sophia, for Saint Sophia. So, but the bidding was going too fast. The last bid was $25,000 for Saint Nicholas. So I got up and I said 26. Right away, 27, and then 28. I couldn't go any higher. So I asked, I remember I asked Metropolitan Silas, I said, can I make a telephone call? He said, by all means. I make the call to Mrs. Kelly's, and she told me that she really wants the name. So I told her that I couldn't go any higher, and she told me, no, you go, and whatever the price goes, I want to have the name. And then I said to her that, well, I have a mother, Saint Sophia, and I have a daughter, Saint Sophia, so maybe I can contribute some too. He says, okay. So I went inside, and I started raising, and we went 1,000 each time, and I was the last person that I raised it to 37,000.
So you made the bid go to 37,000 for the name to become Saint Sophia.
And that's the way we got the name Saint Sophia.
Interesting.
Now, after that, Father Andrews helped us to form the bylaws and everything else, books to have the baptism, the weddings and the deaths, whatever. Everything, he had the experience and helped us out. And for a new form community.
So let me ask you, when were you officially recognized as Saint Sophia Greek Orthodox Church, and where were you folks? Were you at the current church?
No, we were right away. We have the charter with the same date, May 17, 1981.
1981, you were recognized officially?
Yes. And we have the charter at the church, yeah.
I see. Yeah. So were you actually holding services then in Norristown at that church that you converted?
Church, yes.
How long did you stay there?
We stayed there till 1996.
Quite a long time.
Yes, because after Father Andrews, Father Kehayas came for 5 years. And then for a year or so, we didn't have no priests. We had part-timers every Sunday. And then Father Liberakis came along in 1990. And he looked around what we had. I saw him there. Before we go to that, in 1986, we bought another property in Marshall Street with a colonial house and barn, 4.5 acres.
Wow.
And we were supposed to build the church in there. Father Liberakis, of course, he didn't have anything to do with this. And he said, in one of the meetings, says, what about if we look for a better location? So we decided to give 6 months to ourselves to look for a better location. We found the present and other places too. But the present, it was for $1.2 million. And of course, we couldn't afford it at the time for $1.2 million, so we forgot all about it. But at that time, a lady by the name Laverne, and I wanted to emphasize that, Russian Orthodox, she was the president. And one of the commissioners of the township.
The woman you said, Laverne, was... What was her last name?
Perotto.
Perotto. Mm-hmm. She was a Russian Orthodox.
Yes.
Of what church?
Well, the thing is that her husband died.
I see.
And Father Andrews was the priest. She couldn't find a priest to bury her husband, and Father Andrews did it. And after that, she became very strong member, very contributor, and at that time, she was elected president of Saint Sophia.
Oh, okay. Now I got it. So she was a Russian Orthodox woman, came and joined the church, became president of the church.
Saint Sophia, yeah. So one of the commissioners told her that that lot that you're looking for, maybe you have a chance to negotiate it, to get it for less. So Father John, the lady, Laverne Perotto, Dr. Zaviciano and myself, we made a date with this owner. We went to his house, we had a cup of coffee, and he told us that we could have it for $500,000, providing we make a survey and maybe we give him the difference for tax purposes, which the church could do that easy. So Father John right away says, buy it. I mean, there was no way to do it because up to this moment that I talk, everything that goes on in St. Sophia is through General Assemblies. So we decided to negotiate it. We gave him an offer for $350, and then they rejected. We gave an offer for $380, and that was the price we got this lot, the present lot. We sold the Marshall Street property for $255,000. We had bought it for $175,000, and that money went towards this mortgage, the new mortgage.
Let's see.
At the same time, we formed a building fund, and we asked the people to give up one cup of coffee a day, at least $20 a month. And we end up getting almost $5,000 a month. So with that pledges and the money that we had from the sale of we had no problem to get a new mortgage for the new location. So, and in 93, we start building with the cultural center. In 95, it was finished, and we moved in 1996. I was re-elected president in 96 again, and I was the one who signed with Gary Liberakis, Dr. Gary Liberakis, the mortgage for that building. Of course.
Did you keep the property and the church still in Norristown?
We kept it till we had to move.
Okay.
So actually, all this time, that's why I said before we kept the church. And in 1996, we sold it for $130,000. That money went to the new location. To the new location.
And that's where you had the culture center that also became a church.
Yes, culture center. And I would say that we start having a lot of festivals, functions. We continue the pledge system that we had. And in 2005, when Father Liberakis had left in 2002, he had retired, Father James Pavlou came. He stayed for 5 years. And in 2005, we burned the mortgage with help from different people, from outsiders, and all this money that we accumulate, because we kept it after we bought it. We kept it as a mortgage reduction, not building fund anymore, mortgage reduction. And in 2005, we burned the mortgage. And then we had Father Basil for a year, and then Father Peter Thornburg came in 2006 with his family, and it happens to his daughter to be Saint Sophia also.
So the mortgage has been burned. What's next?
Next thing was to build a church. Right away, we formed a committee. We start having pledges. And 2011, we start building the church. In 2012, we got in on the church.
That's very fast.
Very fast, because we had the money. We used the money that we had pledged. And after we finished the money, then we borrow money from the bank. Now, at the same time, the idea was to do the iconography of the Pantocrator and Platitera. I can say Dean Laskaris was initiative of that. He took care of it, and we didn't have to. We did that, plus the 5 sceneries of the evangelismos, the nativity, the baptism, the crucifixion, and the Anastasi. So when we had the Thyranixia, the people, they were surprised to get in and see all this iconography. It's something unique, and right now the church is very, very appropriate, has everything new, the furniture and the rest of the iconography. And the thing is, the most important thing is that all these are paid separate.
Well, can you tell us about the day of the Thyranixia? How did you feel that day standing there? You had been there through the history of this church.
To tell the truth, I was crying because I never thought that I'd be in a position, in a such position, to be there having a church like this and be part of it. It was not just me, it was all the people that participate. They work hard all this time, and everybody has to get the credit. And we are very proud, and we like people to come in, just even to visit our church, because it's I would say it's the jewel of the community, of the whole area.
Do you go to church on Sundays now?
Every Sunday I'm going to church, and because I don't want to do anything else, I joined the choir and I enjoyed the liturgies every Sunday. Even rain or snowing, I go there. And I enjoy the young families, the kids, that we have a lot of kids. The Father Peter is good to them. They love he loves everybody, all the kids, and we love him too. And I hope God gives him strength and a lot of years to be with us and continue, because churches, they never finish. There's always something to be done.
You've been a president 2 times now. Looking back on your community, what are you feeling? What are you thinking about?
I'm very proud that I was part of it. It was not only me, took a lot of people. They all work hard to arrive where we are. We are proud that we have a church like this. And of course, I have to thank my family, my wife, Pauline, my daughter, Sophia, and also my granddaughter, Theodora, who grew up in the church, in this church. Also, I want to thank the Cosmos Phillies and the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia.
Harry Papadakes, thank you again for speaking with us. We want to wish you, your family, your church, and your entire community up here in Norristown lots of luck. And congratulations on the anniversary you folks will be celebrating.
Thank you very much, and I hope we see you there.
I hope so too. Thank you.
For more information about sponsoring or viewing the interview series, visit the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia online at gahsp.org.